How you doing, YouTube? Joe here, and today I'm going to be doing a basic information video for people that are either just getting into the hobby of reefing, or have bought their first tank, or even are getting into the hobby, you know, further and just looking for more information and just haven't really gotten where they want to be. So that's basically what this video is for. It's not for people that have a lot of experience, although feel free to watch. I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and in that time I'd like to say that I've dedicated so much time to it that I've got a good amount of experience, and you know, my coral health and fish health and overall tank is a, I guess, a statement to the success that I've had. And now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't always that way. Definitely when I first got started there was some really conflicting information on the internet. Not necessarily that it was all wrong, or that some of it was wrong and some of it was right. It's just that sometimes, you know, doing things differently will work for somebody, but they won't work for somebody else. So in this video, I'm going to basically explain to you the basics of what you're going to need in order to get started with a reefing system, and the patience that it's going to take. So with that, the first thing I'm going to tell you, patience. Patience is everything. If you go into this hobby rushing and buying coral after coral and fish and thinking you're going to put a whole bunch of fish into a small nano aquarium such as this and the tank's going to do well, you know, I got news for you. It probably won't. You know, taking your time is absolutely, I mean, it pays off. So I know how you guys are. Like with me, you know, I see a coral, I'm like, I can't wait, or it'll be gone next month. When, you know, when it's really time for me to add another coral, or, you know, for that point, and you just get it, and you do it too fast and things just don't go well. Now, while you can add corals really fast, the big problem you have there is that if you don't have your dosing down, the more corals you add, the more things are going to be used. So if you don't take that slowly, you're going to want to run into water parameter issues. That brings me to my second point. One of the common misconceptions that I had heard on the internet was that with a nano reef tank especially, just doing, you know, medium, you know, 25% water changes every 2 weeks would be adequate, or even every week would be adequate enough to replace the essential elements such as carbonate hardness or alkalinity, magnesium and calcium in the tank, along with all the other types of essential elements that are needed for coral growth and coralline algae and things like that. That would be adequate, and it wasn't for me. When I first got my test kit, I thought, you know, everything's going to be great, and it wasn't. My calcium was at like 300 parts per million, and, you know, my magnesium was through the floor, my alkalinity was through the floor. And that was because I had so many corals that it was basically taking up more than just simple water changes could keep up with. And while my corals looked okay, I just wasn't getting any growth. So while people will tell you they've had great success, how much coral growth have they really had without any kind of dosing? That's the question to ask. Now, if you have a really small, like pico size reef tank, it's probably not such a big issue, because in that small of a tank, corals likely aren't going to be using more than you're going to be changing every week. So this is just something to take into consideration. So think about that for a second. So think about, you know, the dosing. Do some research on it, and also realize that not every tank is the same. There's no fix-all solution or answer to any one reef tank. Every reef tank essentially is going to be different. So the advice that you're going to get on the internet may not work for you. Somebody will give you advice based on what they've had success on, and while they mean well, it may not correlate or work well with the type of system or the bioload that you have. So, you know, doing your own research and going through your own trial and error is really what ultimately is going to lead to success for you in this hobby. A couple things that I recommend getting. You can get a hydrometer to test your salinity, and while they work, I've found that they're nowhere near as accurate as something like this. I got this on Amazon. This is a refractometer, very easy to use, and it wasn't super expensive. I paid like $22 for it. And basically what it does is when you zero it, which if you get one, learn how to do it yourself, but when you zero it, you know, you can check your salinity, and they seem to be a lot more accurate. I've actually tested them and compared to my hydrometer, and the hydrometer's been off. And I've used a buddy of mine's refractometer. Got the same with the refractometer as I did with mine, but the hydrometer was still off. So while you can use that and get away with it, just realize that they may not have the accuracy that you need. But for first starting off, they're great. Now that I'm a year into the hobby, I've got one of these. It's made my life a lot easier. Secondly, another thing you're going to want to get, a high quality, very high quality, you know, test kit. For, like, this is a Reef Foundations Pro test kit from Red Sea. And basically it tests calcium, carbonate hardness or alkalinity, and magnesium. And it's a lot more accurate than something like this, the API test kits. And while these work for general reefing, with me, I like to get as accurate as I can. That way my dosage is accurate. If I'm getting kind of, if I'm getting numbers between 400 and 450 parts per million, but I don't have that in-between number, it's very hard to get a very accurate dosing for my tank, and I don't want to overshoot or undershoot my dosing. So while these work great for a while, I recommend investing in a better quality test kit. And all I test for is, ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, and carbon hardness, magnesium, and alkalinity. That's it. And my reef has been doing great. Another thing I recommend doing, if you know somebody in the health field, or if you want to go to the store and get them, little syringes like this that have, the milliliter marks are going to help you dose if you have liquids. It's going to help you dose your tank easier and get a lot more accurate dosing. So that's another thing I recommend. The last thing I absolutely recommend here is get you a little journal. And in that journal, keep track of your water changes. Keep track of things that happen in your tank, things that change. And keep track, like if you see here, I've got my, alkalinity. And as you can see, I kept track of all these things. I'll write things like how far it's dropped or if things have changed. That way I can adjust my dosing accordingly. So getting a little notebook like this and keeping track of things gives you that record where you can go back and look into, what is happening in your tank. And sometimes it'll help you correct problems before they become something serious. Another point to talk about, if you're looking to get a tank such as what you see behind me, it's very popular, is a BioCube reef tank. Just understand that there are limitations to it. Now, I've modified mine pretty significantly, minus the lighting, which is the next step. So try to understand that, while you can get away with less, it's always good to have more. So with that common misconceptions and no water changes, I do water changes every 2 weeks. I do about 5 to 6 gallons. And while this is a 29-gallon BioCube, another thing to take into consideration, if you've got a stock BioCube or a tank that's got a built-in sump, you need to understand that it's a wet-dry system, meaning that the tank is, while the volume inside of it is 29-gallon, when you actually have it filled up, the water has a dry area for both the first or the second and third chamber, so it's not truly 29 gallons. Then you got to take into consideration the volume that your rock take up, your sand, and your corals. That with your heater and other combined power heads are going to all take up water volume. So take that into consideration when you do your dosing. And another recommendation I have is if you haven't set your tank up yet, do it gallon by gallon so you know exactly how much water is in your tank, so that when you do go to do your dosing, you're not playing a guessing game. So as you can see here, it's nighttime. My tank is shut down. I do have other videos that show the tank with everything open, but this is more of an informational video. I've modified my tank. I've got a custom sump that I've built underneath of here out of acrylic. So that just goes to show you how far you can go into this hobby. And it's got a huge protein skimmer. I used to believe that you couldn't get away with a protein skimmer. And while you can, water changes at that point basically become your primary source of export of nutrients and proteins in your water. But having a protein skimmer will definitely aid you in being able to get away with, I don't want to call it slacking, but you can get away with more. It gives you more room, a margin for error, I guess is the kind of words I'm looking for here. And also, as you can see here, I've got my refugium. For those of you that don't know what a refugium is, since this is an informational video, what the refugium is designed to do, if you've got a reef tank already and you're scrubbing algae off your glass and it's just an eyesore, it's a pain in the neck. What a refugium does is I run the lighting opposite. And what it does is it basically takes nutrients and outcompetes algae in the main display tank for nutrients so that it doesn't have the opportunity to grow. While it still will grow, it's significantly less. Since I've been running my refugium, I've noticed that I only clean my glass on my aquarium once a week versus having to take magnet and going over it almost every single day. So that's something to take into consideration. It also adds an area for copepods and tigerpods and things like that to reproduce safely and helps feed your corals and things like that. Another side note, you can actually do a refugium on these tanks. There are lights that you can use, like the JBJ Nano magnet light that fit in the back. The only problem with that is, depending on your stock wet-dry filter system, it doesn't work with that typically. So modification of the filter system, I would almost say, is completely necessary, simply because the filter cartridges are extremely expensive when you're replacing them once a week, especially when you have a higher bio load. And doing something similar to what I've done, definitely takes that out. I do have a video that explains how I did the sump, how I built it, and the way that entire process went. So that's something you can look out for if you subscribe to my channel. I'm also going to go over different methods that I've had and the successes that I've had, and I'm going to go into more detail on the products that I've used. For example, I used to use a little Coral Life Airstone protein skimmer, and while it worked, it just wasn't adequate enough for a tank of this size. So I went the route that I did. So basically, you go through a lot of trial and error what I'm trying to do here is keep you from spending lots of money. These little kits don't cost a lot, but when you buy several of them that aren't extremely accurate, and then you start getting more corals and you need more accurate testing results, spending the money on this one time is far less costly than buying several of these that aren't going to be as accurate. Not to say that API doesn't make great products, but they're more basic for the basic, basic hobbyists. So something to take into consideration. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I usually have a lot of time on my hands as far as ability to answer people back, so just bear with me on that. If you have any other questions, again, feel free to comment. Please like and subscribe to my videos, and be on the lookout for more reefing videos and informationals on lots of different things, such as protein skimmers, more information on refugiums, lighting options, modifications for the 29-gallon BioCube, as well as possibly showing how to do different test kits and things to look out for when you're choosing your corals and your fish. That way you don't make mistakes similar to the ones that I did, and the reason that I'm able to make these videos and share these experiences with you. I hope you enjoyed this review or this informational video that I've provided, and as always guys, thanks for watching, and have a great day.